Uhuru, 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 and welcome to this very important event hosted by the African People's Solidarity Committee, entitled The Lies Exposing Five Zionist Lies Exposed, Build Solidarity with African, Palestinian, and Oppressed Peoples. And of course, they have more than five lies, but we're going to hone in on some of the most important. So today we'll be discussing and exposing some of the lies told to justify colonialism and the genocide being carried out against Palestinian people in Palestine, and the role that white people can play to stop this under the leadership of the African Revolution. So my name is Sandra Forrest. I'm a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, or APSC, the organization hosting tonight's event. The African People's Socialist Party formed APSC in 1976 with the mandate that we organize other white people to build the movement of reparations and genuine solidarity with the liberation of African people. So that is our assignment, and we work under the direct leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We are a constituent organization of the African People's Socialist Party. So we salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela. And I also want to salute my leadership in the Solidarity Committee, APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess. So before we get started, if you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button to help us get this important information out. It helps with the algorithms so more people will see this. And subscribe if you aren't already so that you will get alerts whenever we go live or post a new video. And if you're tuning in on Facebook, please share this live stream with friends and let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. So we're going to have a Q&A later in the program, so please do take notes and enter your questions in the QA feature if you're in Zoom, or in the comments on YouTube or Facebook. And I want to let everyone know that this event is a fundraiser for the Uhuru Solidarity Center, which is the national headquarters of the Solidarity Movement. It is a beautiful organizing center located on the south side of St. Louis with a banner outside that reads Unity Through Reparations. The building is owned by the party's Black Star Industries. And we have the goal tonight to raise at least $500. So please go to apscuhuru.org/donate to make a contribution as you are watching. So we're really excited for today's featured presenters. African People's Solidarity Committee Chairwoman Penny Hess is going to give an overview, and she'll be joined by African People's Solidarity Committee members Jesse Neville and Ruby Gittleson to discuss this whole topic in more depth, and they will take your questions. If you didn't already know, African People's Solidarity Committee Chairwoman Penny Hess was the first person to heed the call from Chairman Omali and the African People's Socialist Party to organize in the white community for reparations. So she was present when the African People's Socialist Party held the founding conference of the Solidarity Committee in the fall of 1976, almost 50 years until the APSC's anniversary is next year. And she's been a leading cadre member of the African People's Solidarity Committee ever since. Under the leadership of the party, she researched and wrote the book Overturning the Culture of Violence. I should be showing one here. I'll get that. They really encourage everyone to read and reread. I have a signed copy on my bookshelf. And she's also a member of the Uhuru Three that just beat the feds in a 2-year-long, almost 3-year-long campaign against the bogus charges that tried to lock up Chairman Omali for 15 years. So, and then Chair Jesse Neville is also a member of the Uhuru Three. He is a leading member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, our mass membership organization. And Comrade Ruby is a decades-long member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, Chairwoman Penny.
Yes, I am. Uhuru Sandy, it's always so good to see you. And I know that we live many, many miles away, but I love seeing you on Zoom and hope you'll be here in St. Louis again one of these days very soon.
Oh, I will be.
Okay, great, great. And really appreciate you, Comrade and Lisa, for coordinating this event. And want to welcome everybody here tonight for this study event. And we want to talk about the whole question of Palestine, the liberation of Palestine, the liberation of the Palestinian people, and the relationship, among other things that we're going to discuss, so the relationship that the African People's Socialist Party has had to that movement since its formation nearly more than 50 years ago. So I just wanted to say, I just wanted to talk about 1 second. Of course, we saw in Minneapolis today this deepening crisis of imperialism. It's like it seems like every day, or certainly every week, you see a notice of mass shooting, mass killing, and we just see this more and more happening. And it happened very close to where Comrade Lisa lives. And I think that she was saying that they do know people, children from that school and that neighborhood where that did happen. And so, we're here, we're on this cusp of this deepening crisis that we're seeing. And one of the things that we have said, that Chairman O'Malley Shatella has given us the understanding of, is that people are carrying out the way this country was built, the way this system was built on violence, on genocide, on murder and lynching and terror against the indigenous people and African people. So, I just wanted to say that, and also to mention that the Trump administration, as we know, is sending 3 warships with 4,500 Marines to the coast of Venezuela, raising tensions and stoking fears of a possible US invasion. And I also wanted to let people know, if you, and maybe somebody could put this in the chat, the Scott Ritter interviewed Alexander Ionov, who was a co-defendant of ours in the Sahura 3 case. And it was actually very good. It's very good. I'm not going to go into it, but I really urge people to watch it. It's very, very interesting, and a lot of support and unity with the chairman was expressed from both of the people involved in that event. So, as has been said, I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people formed by and working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Shatella. And of course, I have to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Shatella, Deputy Chair Onizine Shatella, the Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party, Mwezi Odom, Secretary General of the European Front, Luwezi Kinshasa, and the Secretary General in Africa, Tafari Magere, and all the leadership of the party and the members of the party. It is very, very exciting. It is very much of an honor to be under the leadership of the anti-colonial struggle that is fighting every single day for the liberation of Africa and African people, and for oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. As we mentioned, the African People's Solidarity Committee was formed on the last weekend of September, the first weekend of October, 1976. So it's 49 years. It will be 50 years next year. And I was there at this founding conference. Was called by the chairman, and it was held in a church in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I was won by the chairman. The chairman recruited me. He actually had been on a tour earlier that summer to Louisville, Kentucky, where I am, around where I grew up and was born. And a friend of mine introduced him to me, and he gave a presentation. It was in the YMCA of the African community of Louisville, Kentucky, and he had a big map of Africa and a pointer, and he went through what was happening on the liberation struggle of every single country in Africa. And I was totally amazed. And it was such a profound presentation, and so winning, that I knew that I wanted to come to the founding conference of APSC and join that. And the thing that we know and understand from Chairman Omali Shatella is that the political understandings of the worldview of the African working class, which the chairman has called this African internationalism, is something that we can embrace. Everybody can embrace this. And the chairman has called on white people to recognize this system and how it was formed, how things got to be the way they are. And one of the key understandings that the chairman has taught us is this word parasitism, the parasite, and that this society, the US and Europe, we live in a world, in an existence that comes at the expense of African and indigenous people. And the worldview of white people through this colonial mode of production, as the chairman has termed this, meaning that colonialism is not something of the past. It is not gone. It is, in fact, the DNA, the absolute essence of the society that we live in. It is not something that is over. That was another period. No, we still live in this colonial reality that determines both the colonizer as white people's existence and the colonized, which are African, indigenous, and the Palestinian people, and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. Indeed, the majority of the people on the planet Earth. So the chairman taught us internationalism and that, what this means when he says the colonial mode of production, that the colonialism is both the past and the living essence of the social system. And, when we look at the reality that white people overall enjoy over $1 million more in assets, this is a new statistic just out this year. Currently, white people have more than $1 million in assets more than African people who are colonized inside the borders of this land, and this land belongs to and has been stolen from the indigenous people. And so, we can look at every aspect of life, the gap in life expectancy, infant and maternal mortality, income, the housing, the fact that this tornado here in St. Louis just devastated the north side, which is the predominantly is 97% African, the north side of St. Louis, while white neighborhoods that were hit by the tornado did not have every single roof taken off. It was, even the quality, the, stability of the houses, et cetera, very different in that neighborhood versus the conditions experienced by African people and the neighborhood where Chairman Omali Shatella and Deputy Chair Onozene Shatella live and work and organize from the Uhuru House on West Florissant Avenue in North St. Louis. So from the very beginning, from the first, founding conference of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the chairman has always made it clear that he stood unconditionally with the struggles of oppressed peoples in Nicaragua, El Salvador, Venezuela, Northern Ireland. He traveled the world to these places and, of course, occupied Palestine. And that the US-backed parasitic settler colonial genocidal state of Israel was founded in May 15th, 1948, in what the Palestinian people have called the Nakba Day, which is the great tragedy, the great, there's another word. The catastrophe that the word Nakba means, the founding of Israel, the theft of the land, and the colonization of the Palestinian people was an incredible catastrophe that the Palestinian people have fought to liberate themselves and overturn for since 1948, for almost 90 years. And in 1967, backed by the US, Israel fought this colonial 6-day war against the Arab states in which it took land from Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. And in 1976, there were the events known as Land Day, which occurred on March 30th in 1976, the same year that APSC was being formed, when Palestinians, particularly Arab citizens of Israel, protested the Israeli government's plan to confiscate thousands of acres of Arab-owned land in Galilee region to, as part of what it's continuing to still do, to steal the land, to create this Gaza colony, this West Bank colony that is basically living in an open air prison, and of which currently the US is attempting to, seize back, especially Gaza, because it's prime real estate, as Trump has called it, right on the sea, right on the sea. They want that land and they're taking that land. And in the process of doing that, they are starving the people of Palestine on their own land. They have created famine. They are bombing. They have bombed the infrastructure, as people know, of the schools, the hospitals, the grocery stores. There is nothing but rubble when you see the photographs of Gaza. And the people are struggling. The Palestinian people will win because the oppressed and colonized of the earth are winning. And this is the winning trend, as the chairman has said. The struggle against this vicious system based on genocide and enslavement and terror and colonialism is the people who are struggling against colonialism inside the borders of the US and around the world. So the stand of the party, the stand of the chairman has always been in solidarity with the Palestinian people in a way that was absolute. And the chairman always put out that all of occupied Palestine, even what is called Israel, the US-backed Israeli state, belongs to the Palestinian people. And that the chairman said this stronger than many people, especially in the US from Palestine, for fear of retribution on their part. But the chairman put it out, and he always has done that. And in 1981, the party's first Congress, they had a resolution for Palestine. This is the book, The New Beginning, A New Beginning, The Road to Black Freedom and Socialism, is a book that sums up the resolutions of the party's first Congress held in Oakland, California in 1981. And the chairman wrote this beautiful resolution, the party's unity with Palestine. The chairman says, the African People's Socialist Party extends its solidarity to the heroic people of Palestine and recognizes their legitimate representative, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. We denounce the Camp David Accords, which is a reactionary attempt to drive a wedge between Arab countries and consolidate an unholy alliance with US imperialism, all off the backs of the Palestinian people. The steadfastness and determination of the Palestinian people to reclaim their homeland and to live in dignity and peace is an inspiration for all oppressed peoples, and particularly for African people in the US, who have also been forcibly uprooted and dispersed from their homeland, Africa. And the chairman says, we deplore the vicious and aggressive actions of the illegitimate Zionist Israeli government in cooperation with US imperialism and its continual attack on the Palestinian people. Most recently, we have witnessed the continued escalation of Israeli belligerence in the form of the destruction of the Iraqi nuclear plant. You can just put the Iranian nuclear plant. Now this is just continuing as if this was written today. The deadly bombing of the population of southern Lebanon, the terroristic rule of Palestinians in occupied West Bank and Gaza, and daily threat of future attacks on the Palestinian people, the PLO, and their progressive allies. We do not divorce the belligerent and terroristic activities of the Israeli government from those of an overall attempt by world capitalism led by US imperialism to reverse the losses of imperialism, responding to the struggles and victories of the world's peoples over colonialism, neocolonialism, and economic dependency. US imperialism today is making a frantic effort to facilitate a reactionary alliance of Egypt and Saudi Arabia, as well as Zionist Israel, to attempt to fool the people under the guise of defending the Middle East from the specter of the Soviet Union, while their real fear is not the Soviet Union, but of the people themselves, the poor and oppressed masses who support the legitimate rights of the Palestinians, who see the dispersed Palestinians as their brothers and sisters, and who will stop at nothing to be free. The will of the people can never be stopped. Victory to the Palestinian people, victory to the PLO. That was a very powerful, incredible statement by the party, again, written in 1981, at one of the party's first resolutions in support of other oppressed peoples. And I just want to read one other article that was in the Burning Spear newspaper I forgot the year now because I can't see that. I think it was 1980. Was it 1981? The chairman out in San Francisco, where the Uhuru movement was based. We were based in Oakland, California then. There was a massive conference or event of Arab peoples and Palestinian peoples in support of Palestine in San Francisco. It was at least 500 people there, and I believe it was held at maybe at San Francisco State or one of the labor halls. It was a huge hall, and it says that the General Union of Palestinian Students held an event celebrating 33 years, this is back then, of struggle to liberate Palestine. The event consisted of many solidarity messages from liberation struggles around the world, cultural presentations from Iran, Palestine, and Chile, an incredibly important and powerful movie. I remember it was called Revolution Until Victory, on the history of Zionism, the genocide of the Palestinians, and the genocide of and the involvement, of Israel, British, and US imperialism in that. The internationalism of this event was there in every way. The Palestinian struggle and the support system it had created has clearly advanced the global articulation and manifestation of internationalism. The program began with a statement of purpose and an outline of the history of the Palestinian struggle given by a speaker from the General Union of Palestine Students. The Palestine National Liberation Struggle sharpened in 1948 in response to the genocidal fascist invasion of the Zionist forces that pushed the Palestinians from their homeland and resulted in the formal creation of the illegitimate state of Israel. The Palestinians see the struggle as being against Zionism and not the Jewish people. The movie that they showed, Revolution Until Victory, clearly puts forth the separation between Zionism and the Jewish people, and how Zionism has consistently allied with the enemy of the Jewish people. In 1939, with Hitler, in 1948, with Britain, and now with the US imperialism. The Palestinians want a secular state in which all can live together in solidarity with this demand. They have consistently supported liberation struggles around the world, fighting against the common enemy, world imperialism, led by US imperialism. Throughout the program, liberation forces named US and British imperialism and Israeli forces as the true terrorists and the threat to the world peace and prosperity. At the end of the program, they pledged that the blood of Palestine will continue to flow for world peace. Other national liberation forces and supporters represented were the Frente Democracio Revolucionario from El Salvador, FDR, the Iranian Students Association of Northern California, Jews Against Zionism, Lebanese National Liberation Movement, the Iranian Student Association of Northern California, and the World Peace Council, the local organizing committee of Anti-Imperialist Conference, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, PFLP, Casa Nicaragua, and the African People's Socialist Party. So, it goes on to say that there were cultural presentations of song and dance. Again, this is from the Burning Spear newspaper. And I just want to go to this because also the chairman spoke from the African People's Socialist Party. It says Chairman Omali Shatella of the African People's Socialist Party gave a powerful statement saying that African people inside current US borders have an intimate understanding of the Palestinian struggle and that it is not a difficult thing to extend solidarity. The chairman spoke of the commonality of the Black and Palestinian struggles, which are being made by peoples whose land has been stolen from them and who have been dispersed throughout the world. The chairman declared that the blood of Palestine has nurtured the seeds of revolution throughout the world. The chairman's speech brought cheers and the chant, "The people united will never be defeated," from the audience of 500 people representing national liberation struggles around the world. And just to say, I did have the honor of being there when first of all, the chairman couldn't finish speaking because when he got up on the stage as an African from the African Liberation Movement, there had been many speakers, but when he spoke, he said, they call the Palestinians terrorists. I am proud to be here among you. The people started cheering and clapping, as we said, stamping their feet. The people united will never be defeated, meaning African people and Palestinian people. And when the chairman came down off the stage, he was hugged, his hand was kissed. He was mobbed by Palestinian people who greeted him and, just expressed their unity and their love with everything that he had stated. So, this is a deep thing. The chairman just said recently, he said, African people in the US, he said, we are Palestinian. It's the same struggle, the same fight. And so I just wanted to say, that overview in terms of what we're saying. And let me see if I have any other notes here. That Yeah, I mean, just to say, okay, I'm just going to stop there and turn it over to Jesse. I have a few other things that I do want to say, but we can say it during a little bit later. So I'm just really proud to have been under the leadership of Chairman Omali Shatella all these years, to learn to be able to see beyond, our position on this pedestal, which just sees ourselves as white people in the center of the world and begin to see, what the world is struggling for, what oppressed and colonized peoples, the profound unity that they have with one another, and the unity that the people will fight and the people will win. And we see this, what is it, almost 70 years, 80 years later, the Palestinian people are still out there struggling every single day. They cannot be crushed. They are part of the winning trend. And I am, again, very, very honored to be able to see this through the teachings and understandings and leadership of Chairman Omali Shatella, and of course, Deputy Chair Onizane Shatella, who takes the chairman's understandings and puts it as real dual and contending power on the ground right here in St. Louis, but everywhere the party has been. So this is a very powerful time, and we have the ability. We don't have to walk over the bodies of African people to get to Palestine to support it. We can stand in solidarity and be under the leadership of the anti-colonial struggle of African people whose relationship it truly is in a principled way with the Palestinian people as the anti-colonial struggle one and the same. So this is a very powerful time, and we're very, very honored to be able to be here and discuss this and, be part of the world and know that we can make a difference under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party.
Uhuru.
All right, Jesse, so I'm going to turn that over to you now.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Chairman Penny. I just really want to
Uhuru.
give a round of applause for that powerful, powerful overview. Just express my absolute unity with everything that you just expressed in that presentation and the powerful statements from our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, going back decades, showing the unbreakable unity between the African and Palestinian peoples as one people, like you said, one united struggle against colonialism. So I'm very honored to be a part of this discussion tonight, and just want to thank everybody who is tuning in to participate in this, and also just reiterate the salute of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Ona Zaneh Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party, who is our leadership and from whom we have learned all of the understandings that we have the opportunity to put out in this discussion. And I also want to again salute and acknowledge the leadership of Chairwoman Penny Hess, who, as Sandy mentioned, has worked under the leadership of the party and the chairman from the very first day that the chairman made the call for white people to take a principled stand of white solidarity with Black power almost 50 years ago in 1976. And I want to say in particular to other Jews who are hopefully tuning in for this discussion, that I'm very glad you're here. And I hope that we can really open ourselves up to these truths that we will be discussing and are discussing in this webinar tonight. And one of the things that I appreciate so deeply about Chairman Omali Yeshitela is that the African internationalism, the theory that he developed, is scientific. And it is possible, the chairman says, to understand everything scientifically, including the question of Jewish people, one which is constantly treated in some kind of unscientific or metaphysical way from one direction or the other. And the chairman has made the very simple but important statement that Jews are people. Jews are people, therefore governed by the same laws of social development as everybody else. And that's something that Jews need to recognize, because with this self-designation of being the so-called chosen people, the chairman points out what we've done is actually separated ourselves from the rest of humanity and abstracted ourselves from history. And to be isolated from humanity is a very precarious position to be in. To be a part of humanity is in our interests. But to do that, we have to come face to face with the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And we have to spread this truth to others as we organize our fellow Jews into a movement of genuine solidarity with African, Palestinian, and oppressed peoples of the world. That is our future, not a self-proclaimed Jewish state that starves and slaughters Palestinian babies and children and women and men in our name. So we completely, as the African People's Solidarity Committee, as Chairwoman Penny just eloquently stated, have complete unity with the position of the party and the chairman of unconditional solidarity with the struggle of the Palestinian people. And I'm going to be talking about these 5 Zionist lies, but the main point, if you hear nothing else from this presentation, the main point is that Jews who want to stand against the genocide being carried out by the so-called State of Israel, the stand of solidarity with African liberation is how we do that. When we look at the truth through the eyes of African and oppressed peoples and reckon with our history as European Jews in an honest way, an unavoidable picture emerges. We are part, as the chairman says, of the white oppressor nation. And so we have been and are the colonizers, the settlers, whether here in the occupied stolen land of the indigenous people in a country built on the enslavement of African people, or in the stolen occupied land of the Palestinians. Israel is part and parcel of the colonial mode of production, resting on the foundation of the oppression of African people. And there are Jews in the United States more and more who want to take a stand against what Israel is doing. And it's very apparent in the past year or so, but even before that, we had read about these so-called birthright trips that Israel sponsors for American Jews to go to the state of Israel and get a tour from the state of Israel, basically an indoctrination trip sponsored by the Israeli government. And there were instances where the Israeli government had started vetting applicants more aggressively because there had been a number of young Jews leaving the group behind to go meet with Palestinians in refugee camps and learn more about how they could support the Palestinian people. And that is powerful, but our message is that we can't overlook the Palestine here. We are inside the belly of the beast, and we have a job to do. So if we truly want to say not in our name, this is how. This is how we change the world. This is how we fight for Palestine through solidarity with Black power. That is the true basis of genuine unity with all of the oppressed and colonized peoples of the world. And as the chairman has always said, and as Chairwoman Penny mentioned, we will not walk over the bodies. We cannot walk over the bodies of African people colonized within the US to protest the same colonial system abroad. The chairman has said Palestine is all around us. So, and I also want to extend this call to Jews in occupied Palestine who call themselves Israelis. We make the call. Where are the Jews in Israel who are ready to resist the Israeli colonial genocide against the Palestinians, to say no to colonialism, to stand with the Palestinian people? Huge numbers of Israelis have come out to protest Netanyahu, but opposing one so-called corrupt politician is not the same thing as standing with the freedom of the Palestinian people. So we invite and urge and challenge Israeli Jews to begin demonstrating in massive numbers. Show us that you're there so that we can reach you and win you to join Jews Against Colonialism and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And finally, before going into these 5 lives, I want to give a special recognition to Robert Suberi, a friend of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement here in St. Louis, who has stood with the Uhuru 3 against US government state repression. And Robert, who was raised as a Zionist, was among the passengers of the flotilla, the aid flotilla, seized by the Israeli forces last month. And he was, among with several others, actually held captive by the Israeli state. So we want to salute Robert for his stance and also for his recognition of the importance of standing with the African struggle inside the US. He's marched with us every year for the March for Reparations. And we have one coming up on September 13th, where if he's back in town, we hope that he'll be there with us once again. So this event we'll be talking about 5 Zionist lies. And what I'll be doing is addressing these lies by reference to the understandings and analysis of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and African internationalism. And I know somebody sent in a question saying, well, there's more than 5 lies, and that is absolutely true. So the first thing I want to start off with is when we talk about Zionist lies, what exactly is Zionism? That's the first lie to figure out, because some liberal Zionists, like Noam Chomsky being one of them, like to define Zionism as the belief in Israel as the biblical homeland of the Jewish people. That is a very deceptive and benign sounding definition. Zionism has nothing to do with some religious yearning by Jews for Jerusalem or anything like that. Zionism, as the chairman helps us understand, is the ideological justification for the colonial theft of land from the Palestinians by European Jewish settlers and the establishment of an illegitimate white nationalist colonial settler state maintained through genocidal expulsion and slaughter of the Palestinians. Zionism is colonialism. As Chairman Omali has explained, the colonizer has a stake in hiding the truth. The colonized are required by history to discover the truth. Those are the words of the chairman. So therefore, there's nothing about Zionism that is not a lie. So 5 lies, we just picked a number. The entire existence of the Israeli settler state is based on a lie that Palestine was a, quote, land without a people for a people without a land. The whole thing is a lie. But to break down some of the specific myths that you're likely to run into and to arm you in being able to take them on, I will be drawing your attention to some of the ways the chairman has dismantled the regime of lies that has been built to justify the Zionist settler colonial project. So number 1, perhaps one of the most common lies that you will find yourself, and I'm sure you have found yourself running into from the proponents of the Israeli settler colonial state, is that the state of Israel was necessary to protect the Jewish people from harm after the so-called Nazi Holocaust in Europe. And nearly all Jewish people in this country, perhaps nearly all people, period, including myself, grew up hearing this, that the Israeli state was necessary to save Jews from a, quote, second Holocaust. Well, the chairman answered this question many, many years ago with a very pointed question. He said, who was it who put Jews in gas chambers in Germany? It was not Palestinians. It was white people. It was other Europeans. And the chairman asked the question, if the state of Israel, if gaining a Jewish state was necessary as some form of reparations for the German Holocaust against Jews, why didn't Jews take Frankfurt or Berlin? And the reality is that the so-called Nazi Holocaust, first of all, the Zionist project predated the Nazi Holocaust, the Nazi persecution of Jews by other Europeans. That occurred in the 1930s and 40s. Zionism as a political movement was created in the late 1800s. So the project of creating a settler colonial state on stolen, occupied Palestinian land had nothing to do with, quote, healing the trauma of Jewish suffering as a consequence of the Nazi persecution of European Jews. And in fact, we have books, and the documentary that Chairwoman Penny mentioned goes into this history, the Zionist movement had no problems collaborating with the Nazi government to facilitate the relocation of European Jews from Europe to Palestine to participate in the colonization of Palestine. So this lie is very much wedded to the other massive lie that is constantly promoted by defenders of the Israeli state, which is that it is anti-Semitic, quote unquote, to say anything critical of the state of Israel. And it's deeper than that, actually. The anti-Semitism thing, as the chairman has explained, is used as an ideological weapon to attack African, Palestinian, and colonized peoples anytime they criticize imperialism, period. And one such example of that is that the chairman a few years ago was actually banned by Zionists from speaking at San Diego State University because they charged him with being, quote, anti-Semitic. And they actually had a document where they said, look, this man is anti-Semitic. Look at what he said. And here's what he said. Here are the words the chairman said. I think they are very apropos for this particular point. He said, however many Jews were killed in Germany, white people killed them. They were not killed by Iranians. They were killed by white people in Europe. I truly believe that Jewish people have a responsibility to denounce the illegitimate state of Israel, to express solidarity with the just struggles of the Palestinians and other oppressed peoples. So using, quote, anti-Semitism, a Zionist organization prevented Jews in San Diego State University from being able to hear that message. And the lie of, quote, anti-Semitism, this is not an innocent lie. It is a lie with sharp, bloody teeth. When colonized people are accused of being, quote unquote, anti-Semites by the colonial ruling class, people's careers are destroyed, livelihoods are destroyed. In Europe, they put people in jail on the allegation that they've engaged in so-called anti-Semitism. And that happened many, many times, especially in the past year or two, since the October 7th resistance. When people were demonstrating, had signs or patches on their backpacks, they were charged with terrorism and told that they were engaged in hate crimes against Jewish people. And we want to make the distinction that a lot of the time when you hear this being discussed, you'll hear a sort of liberal left mantra that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. But rather than go on the defensive, the party's response to this question, and what the chairman has pointed out, is that the entire concept of anti-Semitism is weaponized, just like the history of Nazi persecution of Jews, as an ideological bludgeon to smash African, Arab, Palestinian, and colonized peoples when they advocate for their freedom, when they criticize their oppressor. So moving forward, a third lie that it's almost feels ridiculous to even acknowledge it, to dignify it, but all of them aren't, but is the idea that God gave Israel to the Jewish people 2,000 years ago. And, as the chairman has said, God is a real estate agent in this narrative that is divvying out land for people. But this really should not be that hard to grasp why, how an absurd notion would become part of the ideological justification for Zionism, because it's no different from the concept of manifest destiny. The idea that Europeans on this land had a divine mandate by God to slaughter the indigenous people and conquer the land. So this is part of the ideology of colonialism in general that invokes Christianity, or in this case Judaism, in a very bizarre way, to promote the idea that the land was bestowed upon the Jewish people, in this case European Jewish people, because inside of the state of Israel, Jewish African Jews from Ethiopia, who, according to this notion of, oh, well, God gave Israel to the Jewish people, but African Jews from Ethiopia have been horrifically attacked by the white nationalist settler state of Israel. African women from Ethiopia have had sterilization forced on them, and white Jewish Israeli lynch mobs have gathered around African people and tormented them and attacked them and terrorized them. So this is what goes on inside the so-called Jewish state. Another lie is that Israel is engaged in self-defense. And, this is one that you'll hear a lot, and they talk about Hamas, and they'll say, well, everything that Israel is doing, Hamas attacked, they actually said they invaded them. They said Hamas invaded Israel on October 7th, which is completely ridiculous, because the settler colonial state of Israel is a product of colonial invasion. The Palestinians cannot invade Palestine. And Hamas and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Islamic Jihad, all of these other organizations are involved in the right to anti-colonial resistance. The Palestinian people, like African people, like indigenous people, like all colonized and oppressed peoples everywhere, have the right to resist, have the right to struggle by any means necessary for their liberation. And I make the call to Jews who truly want to stand with the Palestinian people and with all oppressed peoples to abandon this notion that somehow the terms on which the oppressed peoples will wage their struggle for liberation will be set by us. We do not get to say when resistance is good and justified and done the, quote, right way, and when it is not. We have to stand in solidarity with the right of the Palestinian people to resist, to free their land, to free their people, to end the colonial genocide against them, whatever it takes. And finally, this last lie is kind of interesting, because this one is one that has come about. If you Google now Israel and settler colonialism, you will find tons of articles by people saying that Israel is settler colonialism, and that is because of the leadership and efforts and the struggle of the chairman over decades. I mean, you heard that article earlier tonight. The chairman has been defining this even at a time when the United Nations wanted to say that it was racism, that Israel was racist, or that Zionism was racism. The chairman never took his eye off the mark and always fought for the understanding that Zionism is colonialism. So you're seeing that understanding more and more now. But what you're also seeing is that the Israeli settler colonial state is on the defensive. So there's a ton of articles now from different Zionist organizations saying Israel is not settler colonialism. So I just wanted to point out a couple of quotes. I mean, it's obviously settler colonialism, because it's European Jews that got support. The Zionist movement, when it got started by Theodor Herzl in 1897, the Jewish state, the manifesto of the Zionist movement, the subheading of it was addressed to the Rothschilds, because he was making an effort to win support from every sector of imperialist white power to support the creation of a Zionist settler state. And he wasn't even necessarily decided on doing it in Palestine at that point. He advocated at one point the idea of doing it in Uganda, and one time in doing it in Kenya. And this was, as the chairman has pointed out, 1897 is just a decade or so after the 1884-1885 Berlin Conference. So it was part of the so-called scramble for Africa, where all of the European powers of the world were vying for a piece of the colonial mode of production on the backs of African and colonized peoples. And the Zionist movement was an effort by a sector of actually secular, petty bourgeois European Jews to enter into that colonial mode of production and advance the interests of European Jews within that colonial mode of production. And the chairman has pointed out, at that time, there were other schools of thought amongst European Jews who were trying to solve the contradictions that they were facing. There were Jewish socialists, there were Jewish anarchists, there were Jewish assimilationists who just wanted to be Europeans and Jews in private. And Zionism was one of the strains of thought that was explicitly colonialist. And you don't have to believe me, you can just read the words of the founding creators of Zionism. Theodor Herzl wrote to Cecil Rhodes in 1902 requesting support for the Zionist project. He said, "You are being invited to help make history. It doesn't involve Africa, but a piece of Asia Minor. Not Englishmen, but Jews. Had this been on your path, you would have done it by now. How then do I happen to turn to you, since this is an out-of-the-way matter for you? Because it is something colonial." Theodor Herzl. So the establishment of Israel was something colonial, absolutely. Jewish terrorist organizations like the Irgun and the Haganah were among the organizations that came together and used machine guns, flamethrowers, and other brutal genocidal methods to violently expel nearly 800,000 Palestinians, slaughter tens of thousands of Palestinian people, destroy hundreds of villages, steal their land, and force the rest of them into concentration camps that they call the occupied territories. So this is the history of Zionism. It was explicitly settler colonial from the very beginning. And I just want to share one other quote from a Zionist that I think spells it out pretty clearly. This one is one of the most surprisingly candid admissions by an early Zionist of the colonial nature of Zionism. This one is from a Zionist, an early Zionist kind of architect of that movement called Ze'ev Jabotinsky. So he wrote, "Zionist colonization, even the most restricted, must either be terminated or carried out in defiance of the will of the native population. The colonization can therefore continue and develop only under the protection of a force independent of the local population, an iron wall which the native population cannot break through." And there's one other quote quickly from him that I wanted to read. And this is from a piece that he wrote called "The Iron Wall." So, by the way, in this piece, he says, he's talking to other Zionists, and he goes, the Palestinians are going to resist us stealing their land. That's what native people do. When colonizers come in and try to steal their land, they resist. Look at what happened to the Europeans in North America. The indigenous people fought them and fought their land. So he was very, very aware. It was not hidden. He was very aware that it was no different from from the European genocide against the indigenous people, and that it was colonialism. And he says that, anyway, I can't find the quote, but basically what he says is that a native people will resist their colonizer to the very last breath, and nothing will ever change that. That's from a Zionist, an early Zionist. So I just want to close this out by addressing a point that is also an incorrect understanding that is really important for us to dispel, that we hear a lot, including sometimes from white people who are opposed to what Israel is doing. And it is this concept that the United States is controlled by Israel, or that the United States has been hijacked by Israel. And the chairman has cleared this up for us. The state of Israel is a military outpost of U.S. imperialism and colonialism in the so-called Middle East. The chairman once described the state of Israel as the white cop on the block in the Arab world. And that has been its function from the very beginning. The other point the chairman has made is that if the United States withdrew its funding and the weaponry that it provides, the killing machinery that it provides to the state of Israel, which is more than every other country combined per year, the state of Israel receives funding and weapons from the United States. If the United States were to withdraw funding from the state of Israel, Israel would fall tomorrow. So the idea that the United States is controlled by Israel is dangerous because it actually absolves the United States of its responsibility as the leading imperialist power in the world and itself a settler colonial state built on the genocide of the indigenous people and the enslavement and ongoing colonial oppression and exploitation of African people. And the idea that the U.S. would be wonderful and its foreign policy would be so benevolent if only the Zionist lobby were not controlling it and forcing it to do these terrible things is a very problematic conclusion to come to. And it is true that one point the chairman has made is that the state of Israel is so strategically important to the United States that sometimes the state of Israel may operate independently of the United States. And you have a situation where the tail is wagging the dog and the US ends up having to move a certain way because Israel is so strategically important to it. But at the end of the day, Israel would not exist without the United States. And because I've been quoting Zionists and colonizers to make these points, I will just quote Joseph Biden, who said, if the state of Israel did not exist, the US would have to create it, which it basically did. So I just want to end with that. And again, appreciate Chairman Amalia Shatella for making it possible for us as Jews to understand this and to release ourselves, to relinquish ourselves from as the chairman says, from the sector of the colonial bourgeoisie that claims to speak for all Jewish people as it carries out these horrors and atrocities around the world. We can break our allegiance from that. We can find our true interests and our true humanity in solidarity with African people, which places us in genuine solidarity with the Palestinians, with the indigenous people, and with all of the colonized and oppressed peoples of the world. And if you are a Jewish person watching this, I urge you to join the African People's Solidarity Committee, join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and fight for unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Jesse, wow, that was so powerful with so much information in it. Just really want to say Uhuru and thank you for that. And we'll be able to have some discussion. We're going to have Comrade Ruby Gittleson coming on to give a presentation as well, and then we're going to open it up and discuss some of these this information and these understandings that have been put out tonight. So I really want to that was a powerful presentation, and we need to get this out and have more events discussing this. Comrade Ruby, great to see you.
Uhuru.
Welcome.
Uhuru. Great to be here. And I just really want to appreciate the presentation, both by, Chair Jesse Neville and Chairwoman Penny Hess. That was so powerful and so in-depth, really important parts of this discussion. And I also want to salute the leadership of the Uhuru movement, Chairman Amalia Shatella, and I have the honor to work under the leadership of Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshatella in her office here in St. Louis. And I want to just contribute a little bit, to this really important, critical, in-depth discussion. And can you pull up that one picture, Lisa? Okay, so this is a family photo from the early 1900s. And the man on the right, that's my great-grandfather, Yitzhak Mordecai Gittleson, who came to the US from Lithuania. And on the left is his son, Saul, my father's uncle, in their store that they owned in Savannah, Georgia. And when you look behind them, there is some Africans back there working. And I just think this is so important because one of the other lies is that Jews didn't know, Jews weren't part of colonialism. Jews didn't do it, and just this picture shows that not to be true. Savannah, Georgia in the early 1900s, that was like a slave port only like a couple of years before. And you know, my grandfather, who was the older brother of my Uncle Saul in the picture, he was a stockbroker in San Francisco when the stock market crashed in 1929. And so he moved his family to Berkeley. And then he opened up a store called Jay's Store for Men in the nearby Black community of Richmond, California. So myself and my family owe reparations to the African community and to the Palestinian community. I grew up in a Reformed Jewish home, and that was, you know, and I was literally physically forced to go to like a Sunday school for a really long time. My whole, you know, my whole school life in the 50s and 60s, and there was very little discussion on religion or ethics or anything about why we were there. It was all about Zionism. We learned all about Theodore Herzl and Zionism, and there was this big giant map in the room that had huge Arab territories and a teeny weeny little Israel, saying like, well, why can't we just have this one little piece? And every single week, we all the little children brought money, and it was to go to orange trees that they were planting in you know, in Palestine, in Israel, that was part of the whole taking of the territory and taking of the land. And my grandparents, they had a whole orange grove. I was sent to these Zionist summer camps that I blanked most of it out. I mean, it just was like really horrible. And many of my family members did travel to Israel on a regular basis for many years. And some of them, then my cousin became like a tour leader. And, you know, several of them went to those all expense paid trips, you know, that the Israeli government offers that Jesse was talking about. My high school graduation present from my grandparents was a trip to Israel that I did refuse to take, not because I had any great understanding of what it was, but I just knew I couldn't stand the people in my Sunday school, and I couldn't believe that there'd be a whole country full of them. So I did not go. And I have a relative now who is a rabbi in Alaska, and the congregation calls themselves the Frozen Chosen. And, you know, they say that like it's a cute name, but what it does is it absolutely trivializes the indigenous people of that land. And, you know, the chairman has said, what is the difference between saying the chosen people and the master race? And that is still absolutely true. And when you look at the genocide and the way, just like the absolute lack of humanity and callousness with which the state of Israel, with the conscripted troops, you know, shoots babies, children, women, and men in the shoot to kill head and chest zone, you know, with no remorse. You know, it's like they have the ability as the quote chosen people, and they call the Palestinians like vermin and things like that. They have dehumanized. They, you know, talk about the alienation from humanity, to dehumanize them to that level that you can just kill, you know, with absolutely no feeling, is it's so deep. And that is, you know, what America does as well. And I just feel like that's been such an important thread, you know, through this discussion. And in the 1970s, I got involved with this group called the Lubavitchers, which are Hasidic fundamentalists. And they are now in almost every city. They were in Brooklyn, but they're also like in Berkeley, on the University of Pennsylvania. And what they do is they're kind of like the Moonies, because they recruit people and then get them married to each other and get them having children. And then they send them, these are the ones that go, these are the Israeli settlers that go to the the settlements, like the collective settlements, that they're taking territory. They're the ones that shoot to kill, the Palestinians. They are the armed civilian force, that works in the interest of Zionism and of taking that beautiful land of Palestine, which is like Northern California in climate, with the olive trees, and there's that's that Trump wants to turn into a resort, but that belongs historically to the Palestinians. The So when I look at what is going on with the kind of war that Israel is making against the Palestinians, to me, it's like personal. But more importantly, I've lived my entire life in the US, and it's also personal, the relationship that I have to African people, that have, um, been victims of colonialism in the exact same way the Palestinians have been. And I've had personal relationship to that as well. And I want to say to other people, because there are Jews that are protesting this, what the genocide against the Palestinians, but we have to see that the same relationship, the same personal relationship we have to that war on the Palestinian people is the same relationship that we have to the African community here today. The dehumanization of the people, and this movement, for one thing, there's not going to be any solution except for revolution. The two-state solution, this has shown after decades that the colonizer and the colonized cannot live together, because the colonizer wants to take everything from the colonized, and the colonized have the right to fight and keep control of their own land and resources. So there is no solution except for what's being put forward by the Uhuru movement and the African People's Socialist Party. A revolution, people having control over their own lives and their own self-determination. And that movement gives us a way from the Jewish community, from the white community, that we can be part of this as well. We can be part of the positive solution instead of either feeling terrible about what's going on, and it is horrible and terrible, and we should feel that way. But this gives us something that we can really do to end it, instead of just watching it and feeling bad. And we can be part of the solution through reparations to the through the African community. And it's been spoken about so many times so eloquently in this discussion about the unity between African people and Palestinian and other colonized people, and through reparations to the African community. That is how we can support the ending of this war against the Palestinians. And I just wanted to end there, and thank you all so much for letting me, be here and make this presentation. Uhuru.
Ruby, what a really powerful presentation. Really appreciate that so much. And I'm looking forward to opening this up and letting people ask questions and have discussion as well. And I think that we have another little thing to go into, and I think Comrade Sandy is coming on. A very great event. Really, really appreciate this so much. Uhuru, Sandy, and then we'll come back and talk about this more.
Uhuru, me too. It's so moving and so informative. And Chairwoman Penny, you found that article that we were trying to find of the event back in San Francisco. I want to read that and study it, and that was really very exciting and important. So we are going to do QA, take questions and answers and discussion shortly. So please do, if you have questions, if you've taken any notes, as I have taken some, go ahead and submit those into the Zoom QA feature if you would, or if you're on YouTube or Facebook, into the chat. So before we go there, we just want to take a few minutes to tell everyone how you can get involved in solidarity with African people's struggle for liberation and support this work. So the most important thing you can do to stand with all oppressed peoples is to join under the leadership of the African Revolution. That's what APSC was created to do. We have a goal to raise at least $500 today for the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis. So please go to apscuhuru.org/donate. So that's APSC, the acronym for, or the initialism for African People's Solidarity Committee, Uhuru, UHURU.org/donate. And if we can get 10 people to each give $50, we will meet our goal today. So please go there. You know, the funds that we raise in these APSC events go to the expenses of the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis, again, which is a building owned by the African People's Socialist Party that the African People's Solidarity Committee is responsible to develop and promote as we build the movement for white people's reparations to the African community of St. Louis and beyond. It is the headquarters of the African People's Solidarity Committee in the U.S. and around the world. The African People's Solidarity Committee is unique in that it is a strategic front of the African liberation movement, as we say, behind enemy lines in the white community, led by the African People's Socialist Party and founded in 1976, 4 years after the party's founding. The mass organization of APSC, the membership organization that everyone is called on to join, is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And the Uhuru Solidarity Movement has members in over 130 cities in the US and in Canada. APSC, the African People's Solidarity Committee, is a cadre organization, which means that we adhere to African internationalism, the worldview of the African People's Socialist Party, which is a worldview to change the world, not just to analyze it. It's a theory that demands practice. The national headquarters there at the Solidarity Center that we are raising funds for is at 2654 Gravois Avenue in St. Louis, on the south side of St. Louis, in the white community, as we are directed and called upon to organize. And it's a really important and beautiful space from which we organize campaigns like the annual Days of Reparations and the March for Reparations, as well as teach-ins, outreach, and actions such as this rally that was held in St. Louis and other cities, demanding from North St. Louis to occupied Mexico and Palestine, colonialism must go. It was one of the buildings that was raided when the FBI came. They don't want us. They don't want us there. And it's up to us. It's up to you and each of us here to contribute and say, we're here. We're not going anywhere, and we are growing. So we do want to really salute everyone who participated in the Reparations Summer Project this July in St. Louis that raised over $17,000 in reparations to the programs of the Black Power Blueprint. So the main work of APSC and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is reparations, returning stolen resources to the programs of the party building political and economic power to the African working class, including the Black Power Blueprint and the Uhuru Houses, Uhuru Foods, and Black Power 96 FM radio and the Burning Spear newspaper. People might have heard, might have seen, or you might not have because it didn't get a lot of coverage, that on May 16th, a devastating tornado targeted the African community on the north side, hit the African community on the north side, and wiped out just so much of the people's homes and places that they lived. And you know, look that up if you haven't seen it. Look on the Black Power Blueprint socials, and it's really incredible. And after that happened, the Uhuru movement became the Uhuru House on the north side in the African community on West Florissant, became the center for donated supplies to be distributed to the community. And the Uhuru movement has been organizing volunteer days to mobilize people to come out and help with cleanup and recovery. And there was just, I don't know if anyone has a link to put in, but just last night was another meeting of the North Side Independent Neighborhood Association that had a speaker from who is the president of the aldermen there, and who heard from the community and appeared to support the community's demand for resources, because the city has given nothing. The if you go around there today, it's barely changed from what it was. How many months ago is that now? Months ago, where people lost their entire houses. So this is a really critical area of work that the movement does. And another critical front of the work under the leadership of the party has been the Hands Off Uhuru Hands Off Africa campaign, that is really pushing back the state attacks on the African liberation movement, and is leading the struggle for anti-colonial free speech, and is recognized as that vanguard and as that leadership fighting for everyone's free speech. And we have to support that. And so we really want to call on you tonight. The Uhuru Solidarity Center is a really vital resource for people from the white community in St. Louis to come together and plan and organize events, as well as community outreach and fundraisers for reparations and solidarity with the Black Liberation Movement. So let's keep that center alive and well and thriving. Let's donate. Let's contribute to the work of APSC and the center. So again, you can go to apscuhuru.org/donate. You can make a one-time contribution, or you can become a monthly sustainer, like some of our loyal and generous monthly sustainers, Michael, Virginia, Leah, and others who give every month. So I want to go and take a look at what, I don't have access to the pledges spreadsheet to thank people. I do need access, whoever's listening and can give me that. So we're going to thank people. I don't know if, okay, I think I've got it now. Okay, so we want to thank again Comrade Leah, who is already a sustaining donor to the Solidarity Center, and has then, in addition, at this meeting tonight, contributed $50. Thank you, Uhuru, Leah. We want to thank our comrade Lisa in Minneapolis, who has just contributed $100. Lisa, who is my leadership in the agitprop. Uhuru. My leadership in the Solidarity's agitprop work, who is just a tireless hero of getting the word out and leading this fight in our war of ideas. So thank you, Lisa, for this generous contribution. Comrade Ali, Secretary General of the African People's Solidarity Committee, based there in St. Louis, has contributed $50. And also, Comrade Ali has been in the trenches for what, 40 something years, for since the 80s at least, if no, it's probably since the 70s, almost since the beginning, just making the fight in the most heroic and leading way. So thank you, Comrade Secretary General Ali, for that generous donation of $50. Comrade Ruby, who just said that that all white people owe reparations, and is also there in St. Louis and has contributed $50. And I loved seeing that picture, the photographic evidence of the participation and complicity of Jewish people, along with all other white people, in slavery and genocide of African people. So I just think it's very courageous to put that out on Front Street and take the right stand. So thank you, Comrade Ruby, for a $50 contribution. And Comrade Becky, another comrade who I have the great pleasure and honor of working with in the media aspect, who is also out of Minneapolis. So the Midwest is well represented here, Hey, us out on the West Coast, we need to get this going. People down in the South, out in the North, the Midwest is really carrying it tonight. So far we have $300 donated. We need to raise $200 more.
Uhuru, I don't know if you counted mine, but I haven't put it in yet, but I'm going to put in $50.
All right, Chairwoman Penny puts her puts.
Was mine missing?
Oh,
And I was wondering, I know people are watching on other platforms as well. Do we know which ones? Anybody? And I'm just curious because I know that there seems to be other platforms
well, I
besides.
know that we are broadcasting on the YouTube channel, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement YouTube channel. And
Okay.
again, really encourage people, if you are watching on that channel, to hit that like button and also subscribe and also share. Even if people have missed the bulk of these presentations, obviously it's still going to be there, so they can go and look. So please do share in any way that you can. And then we are also broadcasting on the Uhuru Solidarity Movement Facebook platform.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Great, good.
yes.
All right.
So
Yeah,
yeah, and
okay, so I see there's St. Louis, Louisville, Collegeville, Pennsylvania, Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and that's what I'm seeing from YouTube. Great. All right.
excellent. Well,
We have
it,
Columbus, Ohio. It's not on the list,
Okay.
but we do have Columbus on.
Right. And some other places.
well, we're going to keep the program is not over. We're going to have some dynamic discussion, and we're going to keep trying to reach the goal. So keep putting your contributions
Yes.
in. And another important way to take action right now is to join that African People's Solidarity Committee. You can become a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee. If you are interested in doing that, go to apscuhuru.org, our website, /join, and fill out the form. And someone from our membership office will contact you right away within 24 hours. And we can get started on the new member process that includes political education and practical work, contributing your skills and strengths to our mission of winning millions in reparations to the African liberation struggle and building a huge and strong movement of white solidarity with Black power under the leadership of the party. So this is the time to bring all the resources stolen from African people for hundreds of years to the African Revolution. Really want to encourage you, really encourage you to join today and go to apscuhuru.org.
Uhuru.
And
Uhuru.
I don't know if we mentioned all of these people. We do have also people tuning in from Gainesville, Florida, from Chatsworth, California. I don't know where that is. From Columbus, Ohio. I think we did mention that. Yeah, and Italy. Don't forget Italy.
Oh, okay.
And then we had some
Right.
comment, and we did have some comments when people registered. One from Comrade Paolo, who said, Uhuru, down with colonialism, no genocide in our name, victory to the Palestinian people.
Uhuru Palo. I
And
don't know if
then,
you're on, but it's always great to hear from you. And yeah, I just want to say, while Sandy's reading that, anybody can put a comment or a question in the chat. Certainly those on Zoom or others on other platforms. I'm sure somebody's checking it out, I hope. So yeah, you're welcome to join in the discussion.
and we do have some other comments and questions. So also, one of the comments that came in during on the registration form when you registered to participate via Zoom was from Mary in Ellensburg. And I don't know if Mary is on with us or not. I was hoping to do a shout out because I'm over in Olympia or near to Olympia, Mary, and I hope that we will cross paths in person at some point. And yeah, so yeah, shout out to Mary. And then from Remy Petit on YouTube says, I need to read some Black liberation theory. Been telling myself that for years, and now I stumble upon this live stream. Okay.
Great. And you know, you can go to theburningspear.com, right? That has all the books and, written by Chairman Omali Shatella, that are in print, the book Vanguard, just the amazing dynamic political theory of the chairman. Here's one book right here, Vanguard, that you can get on that site. This is loaded with African internationalism and very brilliant. So yeah, I would really urge you to get that and also subscribe to the Burning Sphere newspaper, which has amazing both the theory and practice of the movement, the organizing, the events, plus a lot of profound political analysis of current events and other kinds of things that are going on. So
Great. And looks like one of our comrade chat monitors had put a link in the chat for the burningspear.store/books, where you can order all of those books. And also the Burning Spear has a Substack account. So you can go to the Burning Spear on Substack and get articles frequently, each week into your email box. So yeah, this is the place to read that Black liberation theory. This is the theory of African internationalism.
great.
Yeah. And then we also have a comment on YouTube from Fire, who uses the watermelon emoji for Palestine, and who says the most left of capitalism, Bernie Sanders doesn't see anything against his belief in Israel, if I'm reading that right. Yeah. And again, Remy Petit, he replies, Bernie isn't at all upset by Israel. He only criticizes Bibi. So it's like, here, you can criticize Trump and still love imperialism, want to save it from Trump.
Great comment. So true. Exactly.
Yep.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then,
go ahead,
Jesse.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, you might have it, but if we saw Leah's comment.
Do you want to read or shall I read that?
I can read it. Yeah. Appreciate Comrade Leah. She said, thank you for this great presentation that has deepened my understanding of how to combat settler colonial and Zionist lies. Just to comment, I think another important fact about Palestine is that for generations upon generations, Muslim, Christian, Bedouin, Druze, Jewish people, and others lived side by side in their villages and all had deep ties to cultivating and caretaking the land. The Zionist myth that there were no people there, which is repeated to this day, is a flat-out despicable lie. Uhuru.
Uhuru. And I see somebody is on, they put, they're from Joshua Tree, California, Free Palestine. Of course, California is extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
Stolen land of the indigenous people. I have been to Joshua Tree, California. Wow, what an incredible place that is. Anyway, just wanted to say that, but very, very beautiful stolen land.
Well, yeah, and they say this, and they said that about the indigenous people. Yeah, there weren't that many people in America, and about South Africa, there was nobody there. Yeah, there was.
Yeah, that's always the line of the colonizer, which is in the process of destroying everything. The slogan of colonialism: kill everything that moves.
Yeah. Well, we have I think I don't know if we already announced Chair Jesse's contribution of $50, Uhuru, also of our comrade Johan down in Largo, Florida. So the South has now been represented. Our dear comrade Johan, who has been a part of this Uhuru Solidarity movement for gosh, many years. I first knew Johan, gosh, it must be 20 years, Johan, or is it more? It's been, Johan is a soldier, been in this fight. And with Jesse's donation, he is calling on other people to match him. And right now we are at 450. So if one person matched Jesse's $50 contribution, Chair Jesse has put in, we'd meet our goal.
All right. Or two people with 25.
Yes.
We're there. That's going to be really powerful to get to 500. And I know we can. I know we can. So any other discussions, any other questions? Or anything, any comments that anybody wants to make? I see Janice says, oh, Trisha.
Hooray, Trish.
Trish, how are you? $25. Thank you very much. Very great. And Janice is saying, if another person could read that, my eyesight is
Oh, let me
not that
see.
good.
Janice.
So
This has been very informative. Really appreciate all the info and African and internationalist perspective of the chairman, APSP and APSC. Does the Hasidic settler cult that Ruby mentioned have a written colonial philosophy? Do you know, Ruby?
Well, I mean, they study a lot of Jewish, the Talmud and stuff like that. And they, give these long treatises about how this says the land of Israel belongs, they use the biblical works, and then they get all these different rabbis to discuss it and say, well, this means, that the Jews get this. That's the stuff. That's what I've seen from them. If that answers that.
But even the group that you talked about, that is that, and I've seen the pictures online, that is against,
Yeah, the Satmars.
but it's not from an anti-colonial stand. It's more of a religious stand.
Yeah.
That's true. Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Quick? Yeah, there are Orthodox Jews like in New York. There's a group called Naturi Karta and other groups that, they come out with uh, posters and stuff and Palestinian flags, which is good to see. But yeah, that is correct. The ideology behind it is that they believe that Jews are supposed to return to so-called return to the homeland, quote unquote, after the Messiah returns.
Right, I know.
So they're saying the Messiah has not returned yet, so that's why they're against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, also, I mean, I think this was kind of put out and we discussed it, but I just wanted to comment on the fact that when, in the 19th century, when Disraeli and, when they were putting forward the concept of Palestine, in Israel, basically, that was a time when, as the chairman said, colonialism, or I'm sorry, revolution was the main trend in the world, meaning anti-colonial revolution. So it was an attempt to bring this colonial state inside of a cover of being an anti-colonial, struggle.
Yes.
And I think that's, yeah. So I think it's really important to understand that this is part of, this is colonialism, but it's seen as, is portrayed as Jewish anti-colonial struggle.
Uhuru. We need $25 more to reach our goal, and I don't really
all?
want to. I don't really want to
see
move on to
25 in
announcements.
there from Patricia.
We got
Did you write it
Trisha.
down?
We got Trisha's.
Oh, okay. And did you see Trisha's quote? What a phenomenal presentation. I learned so much, Uhuru.
Great, Trish, really great. Always great to hear from you. Well, I just wanted to say, just anything else, like, for example, the fact that Netanyahu was almost kicked out until the October 7th, struggle happened. And because he wasn't unpopular because of his colonial stand. It was because of how he related to white people in the settler state of Israel. So now he's highly, he's beloved again but as far as I can see, he's not on the edge of being kicked out of power. He's appreciated from everything I can see. Does anybody have any comment on that?
Ruby's got her hand
Oh,
up.
Ruby, yeah, go ahead.
Well, he also needs to stay in office because he will be indicted for a whole bunch of stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Out of office. So he has every stake in not letting go of it. And, you know, I know the thing you were talking about, Penny, I think it was about the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You know,
Judiciary.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
well,
Oh.
I was going to let Jesse
No,
finish
no,
that.
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Ruby. I was just chiming in.
Please chime in. I just know it was something about the Supreme Court, and I don't remember what it was.
It was basically like what's happening in the US where, you know, the concentration of power in the so-called executive branch or whatever that Trump is doing is, you know, a lot of liberals are decrying it, saying that like the rule of law and the courts and checks and balances are being thrown out the window. And it was a similar thing there. He wanted to, you know, in Israel, they have a system where like the courts have a certain level of power. So he wanted to basically dilute that and, you know, concentrate more power within the presidency and the prime minister. So that's what the you know, unrest against him was about. It was like calling for democracy in Israel for for Israelis on the stolen land and genocide against the Palestinian people. And that's what those big demonstrations against Netanyahu were about. It wasn't about solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, you know, living people, and I would just say from the majority Catholic family, but I do have a Jewish sector of it, who the son, my nephew, went to live in Israel. And it's anyway, it's just, I can't understand that at all. But I
Well,
mean,
you know,
not to say that the US is, of course we're here, but this is where we fight it. This is the heart of imperialism right here. But to go there as a believer, and is it even, do you feel like, oh, and he told me, or I think his sister told me that he lives right next to a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
Like,
That says it all.
yeah, that does.
Yeah.
well, I tell you what, I
think they
can't
all do.
believe.
Yeah, they all do.
I tell you what, I can't believe, because my family has very serious Christians, and I've talked to them, like, and they support Israel, and I'm like,
Yeah, a
but
lot
wait,
of Christians.
isn't it in your religion that the Jews killed your Lord and Savior, and now and if you don't accept Jesus into your heart as your personal Savior, you're going to go to hell. So how can you? And they're like, well, but the Jews are the chosen people. I'm like, well, wait a minute, they didn't accept. You know, it goes completely against. I mean, it's just this fantastical anything to justify colonialism. I'm like, well, wait a minute. And they, you know, if they did not accept Jesus into their heart, then they're going to go to hell, right?
Right.
Oh, but they will accept Jesus at the rapture. I mean, it's just like they make up this crazy stuff to
Yeah.
make it okay to defend colonialism. But it's also what the chairman has always taught us about, like religion and holidays and different things like that. It's part of the consolidation of a white national
Of national identity.
the
Yeah,
national identity.
exactly. Wow. Well, if there's no more questions.
Well,
I see
I
a
even put us
comment
over
from
the
Oh, we
top.
do. Okay.
Sure.
Well, let's do good.
I had one other thing I wanted to say real quick. You know, one of the things statements in the presentation I gave earlier was very much inspired by a quote from Overturning the Culture of Violence, where Chairwoman Penny posed the question of Jews: where are the Jews who will, instead of, you know, using the history of what happened to Jews as an excuse to participate in colonialism, will use that history of oppression as a reason to stand with African and colonized peoples against the system that was responsible for it. And in asking the same question to Jews in Israel, like, where are they? And we don't see them, but we do hear every now and then, and Janice put this in the chat, young people burning their draft cards with signs against the genocide. And she's saying that is encouraging versus the ones who are just calling for an end to, quote, war to get the hostages back, which is the majority of what you see.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was a young Jewish woman in Israel who she just refused to enlist in the so-called IDF, and they just kept putting her in jail. And then she got out of jail, and they said, "All right, you got to sign up now." And she was like, "I'm not doing it." And they put her back in jail, and she's been in jail like 4 or 5 times. And we want to reach her. You know, we want to reach her and people like her who live in occupied Palestine and the so-called state of Israel to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We need USM Tel Aviv. You know, we need USM in the state of Israel. As it's known, we need that to happen. So join us.
Guru. Absolutely.
Uhuru. Well, Ivan from Connecticut took us over the top with a $45 donation. So
Wow,
Ivan.
Guru.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Trish is saying she has an outstanding balance of 75, so she'll be sending 100. I assume that means from a previous event or a previous pledge, and that she's combining with the 25 today, I think. So it looks like if that's true, then we have raised $520.
All right. Wow. Awesome.
Achieved our goal.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Really
so
appreciate
much.
that support.
Yeah, and then we have announcements. So I don't know, Chairman Pemini, do you have any final words, or shall we go into the announcements, the exciting announcements of what's coming up?
Well, just that this has been a really great event. We've had this subject before, but I think it's really important to do this from time to time, because there's always new, even though, you know, the same things are happening over and over again for the last 50 years, the same bombings and attacks on Palestinian people, but the struggle is there fiercely. And you know, as has been said, that the majority of Palestinians are not in Palestine. They're in Lebanon and Jordan and, you know, by the millions, and in the United States. And, you know, Palestinians are here. They are not going anywhere. And this struggle is not over. So, and that the majority of the people on the planet Earth support Palestine.
That's right.
Not Israel.
That's
the
right.
Majority, the vast majority in the United Nations, in states, wasn't even Britain and France had to say they, you know, support Palestine, even though they're never going to do anything to, you know, to show that, but at least they nominally had to, you know, had to take that stand recently. So, you know, Israel is the pariah, as is the US, because it is the US, because it is built on genocide and slavery and oppression and colonialism. The world does not want that. People want freedom. They want self-determination. They want an honest relationship, a principled relationship with all the other peoples on the planet Earth. They want to have, as the African People's Socialist Party says, freedom of speech, freedom of association, you know, freedom of the ability to be with other people and peoples who are struggling for the same thing, for national liberation and self-determination that African people are. And that's what we have the ability to look at this reality and to say, we take the stand. We want to stand on the forward side of history. We want to stand with the oppressed and colonized, with African people right here inside the borders of the United States, and that this land is the indigenous land. And that is very exciting and liberating for us. And the whole stand of reparations is not a punitive thing for white people. It is a positive stand. This is our self-criticism to African people and the peoples on the planet Earth that enables us to, to be able to stand it, in an honest way, face to face to African people and the oppressed of this earth. So this is what the African People Solidarity Committee represents. And it's very powerful. So I want to really thank everybody who's been on tonight, and we'll be back in a few weeks. I know we have some announcements. We also have our next study coming up soon. So Sandy, if you want to lay that out.
I'm happy to, and just salute to all three of you presenters, Chairwoman Penny, Chair Jesse, and Comrade Ruby, and to everyone who's participated. And again, if you're watching this, everyone needs to see this. People need to hear this analysis and need to see what we can do, how we can be a part of the future. So if you got any friends, if you have any contacts, share this with them, send it to them, share it through social media, send them an email. Let's really give people the gift of understanding the world with a positive future through the eyes of the African working class. So we have other exciting events coming up. So save the date, mark your calendar. On Wednesday, September 3rd, 6:30 p.m. Central is the monthly organization-wide meeting of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And the Uhuru Solidarity Movement has a lot of exciting activities and things that we can do wherever we are. If we're not in St. Louis, where the Solidarity Center headquarters are, that's okay. We're in 130 cities and we've got work to do. So you can register for that meeting at tinyurl.com/Solidarity September. So please do that. And then on the 6th, on Saturday at 7 p.m., there is going to be a really cool event in St. Pete, Artists Against Genocide, a Day of Reparations to African People campaign event raising funds for the Uhuru Movement programs, Black community self-determination programs. So this is an in-person event, so you got to be in St. Pete. So if you're in St. Pete or you know somebody, please share this with them. You can get tickets. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm misreading. You can also tune in remotely. Okay. So get tickets and a link at tinyurl.com/Artists Against Genocide. And they have a really dynamic, packed program, I happen to know. So it's going to be really good. And then we will be doing another study next Wednesday. The African People Solidarity Committee, we do studies.
2 weeks. That'll be 2 weeks.
Let's see. So it's September 10th. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
September 10th at 6:30 Central, we will be reading and discussing Izwaletu e Africa, Chapter 7, that talks about how the party's theory led to the creation of the African People Solidarity Committee. So that is really, it is really groundbreaking and really important for us to understand the origin of our formation. So you can register for that at apscuhuru.org/study. Then the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is launching the Days of Reparations campaign to raise $30,000, or maybe has already launched. Okay, I'm saying join the Days of Reparations campaign to raise $30,000 by the end of October as a concrete expression of material solidarity with the political and economic programs of the African People's Socialist Party. So there's going to be a march in St. Louis, which is going to be really amazing, on Saturday, September 13th. So that's only a couple of weeks away. And then there's going to be a conference the following day on Sunday, September 14th. So no matter where you are, you can attend that conference by registering at tinyurl.com/reparations March 2025. And if you're in St. Louis or anywhere near to St. Louis, or you can fly into St. Louis, you can participate in this really important march with everything that's going on in St. Louis. It's such a dynamic hub of fight back that the Uhuru movement is leading. So if you can possibly go and participate in that march, I would really encourage it. And you can join a Days of Reparations to African People wherever you are. Have a fundraiser or events. I think down in out here on the West, down in the Bay Area. I think they're doing a big garage sale as a fundraiser, and up here in Tacoma, we're doing a dinner. So there's all kinds of things that you can do wherever you are to raise money as a part of this $30,000 campaign. So you want to learn more? Visit uhurusolidarity.org for more info. Saturday and Sunday also in September 20th and 21st in St. Louis, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement is holding its annual convention. It's titled Cheers to a Dying Colonialism, this time till it's won. And you can register at impedum2025.eventbrite.com. So definitely, if you're in the area, go there, and otherwise you can watch it online. That's going to be amazing. We want you to subscribe, as was mentioned, to get the Burning Spear News analysis and the African Internationalist analysis, the Black Liberation Theory. Get it sent to your email box by subscribing to theburningspear.substack.com, to the Substack. And you can actually get a paper copy sent to you at your door. So if you go to theburningspear.store, you can actually subscribe and get the paper copy in your hand. And that's one of a kind. Okay, so the Burning Spear News Department, the African People's Socialist Party's Agitprop department, has a new podcast that airs weekly, both on YouTube and on the FM radio in St. Petersburg. It's on YouTube every Monday. They have a new time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. You can also if you go to the Burning Spear TV YouTube channel, you can look at the past episodes. And it is a really cool podcast. They've got news and analysis, what's happening, and then they have an in-depth discussion on a chosen topic each week. And they have a section called For the Culture, where get to kind of peek over the shoulder of what the African working class is expressing culturally. Is really dynamic and interesting and inspirational. Now, a reminder, the Solidarity Movement also has a podcast, and that is called the White Lies Shattered series on the Reparations in Action FM radio show and podcast. So on the FM, you can get the app at get the Black Power 96 app. Or if you're in South St. Pete, you can listen on your radio dial in your car or wherever, 96.3 FM, or you can get past episodes on demand on Podbean. It's uhurusolidarity.podbean.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. I think it's on Apple and all the different ones. And it's a really, really good show that Chairwoman Penny and some of the other people here have been involved in over a period of time now. So in addition to all these wonderful online resources, we are an organization of organizers, and we are on the ground doing outreach with people face to face. So we call on everyone here and all of the Solidarity members and supporters to read and distribute the Burning Spear newspaper. So you can order a bundle. And it's time now to get your September issue. So if you go in and order, it'll get shipped to you as soon as it comes out. Again, at theburningspear.com. theburningspear.store. And then you can take the paper out, and it's the best tool ever to give you an in to talk with people and to show people that this is just not anybody can have a website. This is not some fly-by-night thing. This organization has been publishing a newspaper since 1968. So it's a great tool. It's a great organizing tool, and you can find resources how to support your spear distribution efforts at apscuhuru.org/spear toolkit. And finally, the Uhuru Planet Reparations Apparel has clothing, accessories, and more that is forwarding the culture of white reparations to African people. So this is an institution of Black Star Industries, and you can go to their online store at uhuruplanet.com to check out the newest design, which is called Kick the Ass of the Ruling Class. So I know you want to wear that. And so definitely go there and check out. They have a ton of really cool stuff. And then you can get details about all of the events ongoing at any point that we've talked about here and just in the future at theburningspear.com/events. And those are the announcements. So again, I doubt there's any more updates. No, we're still at the same place, but we did a great job with the fundraising. Thank you to everyone who donated. But if you are watching this recording later, if you checked it out and you missed the live, you can still contribute. Please go there. And then make sure to visit uhurusolidarity.org and apscuhuru.org to learn about the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and how you can become a member and join the work to build white solidarity with Black power and unity through reparations. So thank you again to all our presenters and everyone participating. We're saying free, free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Palestine.
And unity through
Reparations.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Relentless.
Relentless.
Vanguard up.
Vanguard.
Oh, should we stay on for a minute and sum up?
Yeah. I was hoping